Well, hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and we're going to be talking about fantasy novels, specifically the next ones on my 100 best fantasy list compiled by Klaus. So this video is going to be 2 or 3 books. I'm not sure how many depending on time frame, how much I get read and all of that stuff, but we're beginning with Six of Crows, and so that's where I wanted to jump in. I am about 50% of the way through Six of Crows. This is the first book. First of all, this is by Leigh Bardugo. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Let me look. Okay, Leigh Bardugo, that's right. I'm like the only person that doesn't know because I've never read anything by her. I've never watched the TV show. I know there's some kind of TV show, but it might not even be part of this. Anyway, let me stop talking about what I don't know and talk about what I do know. This book, well, so far it's been interesting. Like, I like the storyline. They are they're in a gang, for lack of a better word, and there's lots of like, let's get together and go break into this place for something, and let's get together and go do this for some other reason. And so there's lots of breaking and entering and rescuing people and kidnapping people and all that kind of stuff. So it's like that kind of high stakes, but it's also in a fantasy world. We have these characters who are called Grisha, and they can do things. There's different types of Grisha, I guess. So some of them can heal, and some of them are called fabricators. And I've yet to figure out exactly what they can do. It sounds like they can make things. That's what a fabricator does, right? So, but I've not gotten a straight definition of that. And then one of our characters in our little group is a Grisha, and she can manipulate bodies. So like, she can speed up your heart rate. She can raise your temperature. She can also close off your windpipe. And so I think she's been trained as a fighter in that kind of way. And then we have an assassin kind of girl. If you're running a D&D campaign, she would be like the thief. They call her the Wraith, and she's just really good at sneaking around and not being spotted. And then we have the guy who's like in charge of the whole thing, and his name is Kaz, and he's 17 years old. And that is what is my whole problem with this whole book. Not my whole problem. This is my main problem with this whole book. He's 17 years old. Like, as of right now, first of all, they have rescued this person who now becomes the oldest person in their group, and he's 18 years old. I can't. As the mother of teenage boys, I can't. I cannot wrap my head around a 17-year-old. Let's say that even at 14, you are an adult in this world, right? At 14, we'll call you an adult. No, I still don't see how you act like this at 17. Like, he acts like a grown man, and like, his frontal lobe is still not even developed if he's a human. And if this world works like our world works, I can't. It drives me insane. I had the same problem when I read the Cassandra Clare book, the Clockwork Angel book. These children, they're children, and they are written as adults, and they act like adults. And so I just have a problem with the whole age thing. That is my one hang up about this so far. Otherwise, it's a really good story and a really good book, and I am invested. Like, I want to know what's happening with them. I want to know where they're going and what's going to end up being at the end. I do get into the whole non-communication issue, which I think comes up in so many books, but predominantly when it's around romantic type feelings, people just don't want to say what they're feeling. And I know that I was the same exact way when I was 17 years old, but I just want people to act. If you're going to act like an adult in every other area of your life, then act like an adult and say, you know what? I like being around you. And let's just be adult about it, and not, I've been trying to figure out for 2 days how I could talk to her, but not tell her that. So that's my only real issue with the book so far. I am 50% of the way through. Skeeter thinks she sees a squirrel outside. So I'm going to hold her for the last few minutes of this before I go. And I think I'm going to keep reading it today. I have a couple other things, but I want to know where the story's going. Like, we're about to be at another location where they're going to try to break in and do something. So I want to keep going to see what happens. And I'm not saying that I don't like this book or that I'm not adding it to my list. I'm just saying my issue is with the age thing. And I don't know. Why can't you just make people be adults? I know teenagers will still read about adults. Okay, that's it. I'll be back when I finish. So I'm finished, and I really liked Six of Crows. I couldn't decide exactly what rating I wanted to give it, and I feel like I would have given it 5 stars. Were it not for the whole age thing, it still just drives me insane. But I gave it 4.5 stars, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, at the heart of it, it's just about a heist. Like, it's just about a group of people who come together to, well, they're probably trying to kidnap somebody / maybe rescue them. But in order to do that, they've got to break one guy out of prison. And he has an issue with one of the other people in the group because of some treachery that happened before. And I just liked it so much. I like that we get all the points of views. I like that we know what's happening in everybody's brains. And it was just a fun story. And I liked it. And I'm definitely going to be going on and reading the next book. It does not count in my fantasy read because I'm only reading the first book in each series. But I did finish this one. And the next one I'm moving on to is Eragon. So I'll be back with an update when I'm reading Eragon. I just wanted to come do an Eragon check-in. I am listening to the audiobook and I'm about 26% of the way through. And because I'm buddy reading, I'm reading this a little slower than I probably would. I'm only doing 8 chapters a day and the chapters are not long. But I love this book. And, okay, so there's the cover. There's a dragon on it. You can see the cover. And I knew there was going to be a dragon in it. Okay, what I did not know was that there was going to be a baby dragon, and it was adorable. I mean, it didn't stay little for long, but it was adorable when there was a baby dragon, and I just could not, I was blown away, and I love this book. I want to read it all the time. As soon as I'm done with the 8 chapters for the day, I'm just like, oh, I want to know what's going to happen. I want to know where they're going. Like, he has set up this first act. I know we're not completely done with the first act yet, but he has done such a good job of following the pattern that they tell you to follow as a writer. If you're writing like the Eat the Cat in the Save the Cat book, they tell you kind of this formula that these stories go in. And of course, they don't have to follow this exact formula, but there's always a quest that has to happen. And that's what they're doing. They're going on a journey. The protagonist, always something happens where they're introduced to like a new world that they didn't know about, the dragons. I mean, he knew that they were a thing, but he didn't know that they were like all about them. And he has a guide into this world, Brahm. So it's just, he's setting it up so well, and I love it, and I am ready to see what happens with their journey, but I am enjoying just following along. I like being in Eragon's head. I like just everything that we're finding out. I like how easy the writing seems to be. Like, I don't have an issue understanding anything, and so I like it. It's really good, and I now see why it's such a popular book and everybody likes it. I'll be back when I finish. So not only have I finished Eragon now, but I have finished 2 other books on the fantasy list, and I've just been so busy going and going that I have not stopped to come back and talk about those books. So I'm going to talk about all 3 of them here and go ahead and close out this video because I think that's all the ones from my fantasy list that I'm going to have time for in this video. So I finished Eragon. It never disappointed me all the way through. I loved Eragon. I loved Saphira. And then I even really liked the people that he met along the way. There were sad parts, of course. If you've read this, you know some sad parts. There was also happy parts to look forward to. And I loved that in his dream, we got to see certain people in his dreams, and then we met the people, and I was like, oh, I know he's going to have a connection with that person because they were in his dreams. So this one is definitely being added over to my series list, like I don't have enough, and I will be continuing with the Eragon series because I need to know what's happening. I need to know why there are other dragon eggs and who those riders might be that belong with those eggs. So I cannot wait. Then the next book that I finished was The Neverending Story. This was technically not one of my fantasy reads for the month. It was in my separate book club, but it's on the fantasy list. So I thought I would just slide it in here and talk about it. I did not love this book. I gave it 3 stars, which is like my lowest rating. First of all, I have some issues overall with how the magic system works in the world, but the main thing was this was just super confusing. At the beginning, I was very confused. Even though I've seen the movie, I was still very confused about what's happening. Then at the halfway point, I was like, oh, okay, this is where the movie ends. Wait a minute, why do we have so much of the book left? And it's because the movie ends halfway through the book, and then the book just keeps going and going. Bastian becomes a completely different person in the second half of the book, and it's definitely a character arc for Bastian, from who he is at the beginning to who he is at the end. And that part was the most enjoyable part, but I felt like so much of it could have just been taken out, and we still would have understood what was happening to Bastian through the story. Okay, my problem that I had with the magic system. In this world, if you start reading The Neverending Story and you get sucked into the book, wait, there are going to be spoilers. Don't listen any further if you don't want spoilers. In this world, when you get sucked into The Neverending Story, in the real world, you just go missing. Okay? So, step 1, I think that when you go into The Neverending Story, it should be the same time that it is here so that people are not missing you while you're gone. Because there are a lot of people, as we find throughout the book, who get trapped in the Neverending Story because they use Arin to make all their wishes, and so they forget who they were in the real world and they never make it back home. So now, in the real world, there are all these missing people. And that's just sad to me. That your whole magic system involves people just going missing and you never know what happened to them. And while they're not necessarily suffering in the Neverending Story, they're certainly not thriving. They are just doing dumb things, like trying to put postage stamps on bubbles at one point. Like, that's not a life that you would wish for anybody to have. And especially because I don't think that anybody explains to them what all they're doing. Like, Bastian had to just figure it out, and he almost lost himself. I mean, at one point he calls himself the boy with no name because he just almost lost who he was in the middle of the Neverending Story. And so, I don't know, it felt almost like trickery. We've tricked you into this Neverending Story, and we're not going to tell you all the rules, but you have to somehow figure it out and figure out what the moral of the thing is, which is your imagination is great, but you don't need to lose sight of who you are. And then we come back to Bastian when he gets out of the Neverending Story, and I loved that part. Between him and his dad at the end, I was just like, this was the greatest part, was that end little section with him and his dad. So anyway, I did not love this, and so I gave it 3 stars. There it is. And then the last one that I just finished reading was my very first Rick Riordan book, and it was Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. I thought this was great. I love that Percy is figuring out who he is, like at the beginning. I knew that this had something to do with the Olympian gods, but that's really all I knew. I didn't know anything else going in, and I love the spin on it. Like, I think it is such a cool way to tell the story and such a cool way to have the gods still being like semi-present. And so I'm definitely adding this one to my list of series to keep going. And I know there are a lot of books in this series, so I'm definitely going to keep going with it. And I look forward to what is happening next. I don't know that I can say a lot about what happened in this because we start out with Percy at the beginning and we don't know anything. We don't know anything about who he is, just like he doesn't. And so we discover as he discovers. So I don't want to give away like which god he might be associated with or anything like that, because those are all just discoveries that you make during the book. But I can say that there is an artifact that has been stolen from one of the gods, and Percy is being hunted because he is suspected of having the artifact that was stolen. So that adventure ensues from there. I loved the supporting characters. I did see the betrayal coming way at the beginning, but maybe that's because this is more of like a middle grade book than it is an adult book, and so I was like, oh, he's for sure the bad guy. He's for sure part of the betrayal. Like, I could see it. So that is going to do it for this video. Somebody is cold and needs to go be snuggled, and it's not me. Let's see what kind of emoji. Do a lightning bolt for the lightning thief emoji in the comments, and let me know if you've read any of these books or if you saw something in the Neverending Story that I did not see, that I somehow missed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.